Hi everyone, it's Matt Collins here from Platypus Digital. I hope you're well and welcome to our latest webinar on why it is time to ditch your digital team. I work for Platypus Digital. We are a digital marketing agency that works for charities and not-for-profits and other organisations doing really good work. And it's an area that we're really interested in. I'm joined today by the marvellous Verity Pillinger-Cork, who's the digital manager at RNIB. Hello Verity.
Hello there, hi.
Do you want to introduce yourself? Just tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, what RNIB actually is.
So I'm Verity and I work for RNIB, which is the Royal National Institute of Blind People, not to be confused with birds or boats, which often happens. We're the UK's largest charity supporting people who have got sight loss, and I manage the digital team, which is about 12 people strong at the moment and sits in marketing and communications.
Awesome. Okay, so without further ado, let's launch into our slides. We have got some cool slides to go through. I don't suppose the word cool and the word slide should really appear in the same sentence together too often. But yeah, that's what we're doing. So I'm going to run through a few of these. You might see the display flick a little bit between me and Verity. Don't worry too much about that. So yes, why it's time to ditch your digital team. We are coming at this from a not-for-profit charity kind of perspective, but a lot of the stats and a lot of what we're talking about is going to be relevant to everyone, basically everyone, no matter what industry you work in. So it's time to ditch your digital team. Here is a joke from the future. The joke goes as follows: future me, knock knock. Future you, who's there? Future me, the digital team. Future you says, the digital team who? Future me says, exactly. And then future us fall about laughing knowingly and with gusto. Future me spills gin and tonic slightly in the process. So a little bit of a light-hearted start there. Basically, we're making the point here that if you fast forward 10 years into the future, perfectly possible that the digital team as a concept will not be something that future you will know a great deal about. So we want to talk a bit about why that might be the case, why the digital team is going to be so important, why it's so important at the moment, but why the digital team might not be so important in the time to come. So here's a little vision of the past. Now this might be something that's familiar with some people who've watched Mad Men and other such fun TV series. This is a secretary pool from the 1950s or something like that. So this, if you're not familiar with the concept, and why would you be, is a group of women who are particularly good at typing. They're the ones in a big corporation or any organization really who have all of the typing skills. They're the ones in the organization who know how to type letters, type memos, and the big men in the organization, because there are always men, they're just the ones who have meetings, they give their opinions to partners, they wine and dine, and various other things if you watch Mad Men, and the women are there just using their typing skills, doing all of the typing for them. Often the phone calls will be something that will be part of that as well. So the phone channel, that kind of mystical channel, was something that the senior executives were too important or too busy to use. Maybe they just didn't have the skills. So those skills were effectively outsourced to an internal department, the secretary pool, who made all of the phone calls for them and just outsourced that entire function. Fast forward to present day, and the very idea that you might recruit someone who wasn't good at using the telephone, someone who couldn't, without good reason of course, make phone calls for themselves, use the phone to call up people who could be partners, potential donors, potential customers, you name it. The very idea that you could recruit someone lacking in such basic skill is slightly crazy. Similarly, someone who couldn't type again without particularly good reason, couldn't type emails to their colleagues, type up internal and external facing documents. This would be a very strange thing to admit to in an interview. And yet that was very much how things used to be. This was the accepted way of working. No one thought any different, and the idea that one day everybody would be doing their own typing and their own phone calls was a crazy idea. So you'd be laughed out of the room for even considering something like that. Let's go to the present day. Now, the average number of people who work in digital in the comms department, and we'll come back to what department the digital team usually sits in, is 4 for all charities, 5 for the larger charities, and when you go up to the super-sized charities, those that have a turnover of 50 million or more, it only goes up to about 6, and this comes from the Charity Comms report at the start of this year, the changing structure of charity communications departments. So what we're looking at is an internal group of people who have digital skills, who know about email marketing, for example, know how to reach target markets and segment their email database, and look at best practices around maximizing click-through rates and open rates. Got them skilled in digital analytics. They know how to segment the sources of their conversions, their donations, their goals, etc., and report to the rest of the organization on them. Formats web copy for the rest of the world to read. They've got the digital skills to pay the bills, basically, and they are a team of 4 to 6 within the charity, and they're delivering all of these skills on behalf of the rest of the charity. Now, those digital teams, 86% of them, so pretty much all of them, they sit within the marketing and communications departments. That's a Charity Comp survey of the 43 charity heads of digital only a few years ago. I would venture to say that very little has changed since then. That kind of sends a message that at the moment, 2015, the digital team is basically a channel to deliver the objectives of the communications team. Digital is seen as something that can get the message out to thousands, millions of people in a very cost-effective, scalable way. And so they, as a group of people with a particular set of skills, been sectioned off into the communications team, and they're delivering the marketing and communications functions for them. Now, the rest of the organization, like every other organization, there's finance functions, HR functions, partnership working functions. Within charities, you might have grant writing, proposals, all sorts of other functions within the organization. Digital teams almost never sit in those departments in 2015. Now, is that going to be the case in 2016, 2017, and beyond? Who knows? Now, let's look at all industries. So obviously, we're talking a bit about the charity sector here, but let's look across all industries to see what the state of play is. In a survey with eConsultancy, fantastic digital resource if it's not something you're using at the moment, they either have a hub and spoke model or a center of excellence. Now, the hub and spoke model simply means that the digital team acts as a central resource of skills and expertise when it comes to digital marketing. But those digital marketing skills are spread throughout the whole organization. So you will have people in finance who know what email marketing is all about. You have people in the fundraising team who know how to run their own social media channels. And the other model is the center of excellence. So that's something I imagine that's going to be much more common within charities in the UK. That's all of the digital skills are focused in the central hub. All of the content production skills, whether that content sits across email, sits across social media, websites, all of that is being produced, and all of the expertise and skills sit within that digital team. So at the time of the study, not one company felt it had achieved full digital integration. That is a seamless integration between the hub and spoke model and that center of excellence. So that's not one company felt that it had achieved that yet. So interesting to see whether they thought that maybe they should be doing it, but clearly it was an issue of some importance. It was called a matter of survival, so 78% of companies, again, this is across all industries, not just the charity sector, believe that it will be a matter of survival to implement digital transformation by 2015. Now, interestingly, that survey was 2 years ago in 2013, and I don't know if you've seen the Bill Gates quote that people tend to overestimate the pace of change in 2 years' time, and that's 2 years since that last report, and overestimate the change in 2 years, but underestimate the pace of change in 10 years' time. So you think back to 10 years ago, the idea of a digital team was a strange one. The idea of a smartphone, believe it or not, just simply didn't exist. Nobody would know what you were talking about back in 2005 if you mentioned a smartphone, and now literally everyone has them. So it's easy to get left behind in sort of making that mistake. In any case, people thought that digital transformation is hugely important. I wonder how many of those organizations are around today to tell the tale that they just didn't survive because they didn't integrate digital transformation by today. So at this point, I'm just going to hand over to you, Verity. You're going to tell us a little bit about how things used to be for you in RNIB, because you've been around in the organisations for a few years and you've seen some of these changes come and go. So, so tell us a bit about this old adage, we need more people in the web team.
Yes, thank you. That was pretty much the conversation I was having all the time, perhaps about 5 years ago. We need more people in the web team. And over time, that morphed into we need more people in the digital team. So we started to see beyond web and to talk about digital. And digital teams started to work beyond a little bit more than just the websites that they were on. So we started to do more email marketing, we started to do more social marketing, AdWords, and broadening from web into digital. But I wonder how many people are still saying we need more people in the digital team, and how much longer we're going to be saying that. What are we going to be saying in a few years' time? Do we really need more people in the digital team?
Well, this is the question. So yes, moving on from that then, that's how things used to be. So we, used to have a web team that morphed into a digital team, but you've got your eyes sort of not just on what the future of your current digital team is, you've got an idea for what the digital team of the future might actually look like, and it involves ditching that digital team altogether. So tell us about that. Your vision, as I understand it, is kind of threefold. So let's talk about marketing first of all. What do you mean by audience and message before channels?
Well, I think where I come from is a point at RNIB of taking this team from a kind of a web team that just focused on the website and really was sort of a content production house, into one that broadened into marketing. So we do a lot of social marketing, email marketing, as I mentioned. And understandably, I think at first that was really new to the organization. So it seemed right to have a digital marketing team, just because traditional marketeers perhaps weren't as au fait with those skills. Perhaps there was also some skepticism that this new fangled social media marketing, it's just not really going to take off. It's a silly thing in the corner, perhaps. But that's clearly not the case. I mean, most organizations now are on Facebook or on Twitter. I'd imagine most people listening to this have somebody in their team who manages social media. They probably do email marketing. And so we've gone through a point where the organizational understanding of digital marketing has become a thing, so has started and has taken place. But I feel, certainly within RNIB, and perhaps in some of the many other people will feel this as well, is that we're now at a tipping point where digital marketing is understood, where digital marketing is increasingly part of the day-to-day marketing mix. And so separating it out as a separate channel seems almost as silly as separating the traditional marketing channel into, oh, well, there's the radio marketing guys, and just around the corner, you've got the TV marketing team, and sitting upstairs, you've got the print marketing people. In fact, when you look at marketing and marketing teams, they're all about the audience and they're all about the message. And a good digital marketing team is about the same. And increasingly, I think you reach a tipping point where your marketing and your digital marketing teams are doing the same thing, talking the same language, and about audience and message rather than channel. So to carry on with the channel split seems counterproductive, especially if you're splitting budget that way as well. It can be inefficient, and you get a lot of people working on the same stuff in the same way. I'm not convinced it's the way forward. I would be talking about bringing digital marketing into the marketing team.
Yeah, okay. So, I mean, you talk about digital marketing being more understood throughout the organization. People don't just see it as kind of newfangled social media channels that can come and go. Twitter and Facebook have been around for most of the last decade. So what does that mean for content then? So we talked about, not having those particular digital content creation skills within the other teams. So how do you see that that kind of nuance for creating digitally formatted content? How do you see that translating to, we talk about the writer in the corner. Who is that writer in the corner, and how can they be brought into the digital content production mix?
I think there's a few things here. So first of all, content marketing has become a bit of a thing recently, and I think that places content in the marketing sort of marketing mix in a way that hasn't been there before. So I think there's increasingly a move to talk about content in terms of the marketing aspect of content. But there are people across the organisation who are producing content of one form or another. So again, at RNIB, we have people who produce content for print publications, magazines, leaflets, brochures. There are people who produce content across other parts of the organisations for specific groups that they're talking to or that they make contact with. And ultimately, you're all kind of, or you should all be, writing and saying the same sort of things. It's the distribution mechanism that differs. So I'm thinking about content creation and where that comes from and how you tie that into a changed digital team in the future.
Yeah, so I remember working in a marketing team in one organization, and the very fact that people knew you worked in marketing meant they would come to you and say, well, we need brochures and we need posters, and we could do with a few pencil and promotional stationery for our project as well. Do you think that what they should be asking for, as well as all of those things, is we need a social media campaign to promote this new service, we need new web content that's going to tell people searching on Google all about it?
Yeah, I do. And actually, I think sometimes when I speak to people in the industry, my colleagues and peers, sometimes people get a bit peeved if somebody comes up and says, oh, we need a web page on this, or we need some social media tweets on this. And I think, feel peeved in the extent that, oh, that person's telling us how it should be distributed. But actually, I think I liken it to if you have a new starter in your team, for instance, and you phone up IT and you say, I'm going to need a laptop and a phone for this person, and I'm going to need them to have access to X software package. There's a basic understanding in the organisation. You have a basic understanding of IT, perhaps, that you can talk on a level that comes from an informed understanding of what's necessary. And I think with digital, organisations should be moving that way, that people can formulate an idea. We need some content for this. We need to tweet about this. And if you've done your job in the digital team, educating people, then they are coming to you and framing that question in the right way.
Yeah, and it's getting the right questions being framed that's important. And we'll talk a bit about how you can educate the rest of the organization to get them to ask you those better questions. So that's kind of content production. So that makes a lot of sense. If you're writing copy for a brochure, you're writing copy for a poster, it stands to reason that you could translate that into AdWords ads, into tweets, Facebook posts, and so on. What about the rest, though? What about those more technical roles? User experience, information architecture, innovation, developers, project managers, everyone else. So in this kind of vision for the future of the digital team, where do those guys sit?
Well, now this is where it gets interesting, because I see these roles, they're almost the newcomers on the block. I think they're ones that many organisations might not have people doing these roles at the moment: user experience, information architecture, having time to do innovation, to actually develop in-house. I see these as being cross-cutting skills, I suppose. User experience isn't confined just to digital. User experience is a concept that the whole organisation should be taking on board. Innovation as well. These I see as being core cross-organisation digital skills. And perhaps they're linked to marketing communications, and digital marketing communications is where it gets interesting in the future digital team.
And do you think then that skills like user experience and the information architecture are, even at a sort of basic foundation, could get away with it in a conversation sort of level? Do you think that's kind of understood by the rest of the organisation? So let's say you're working in a particular team in your charity, and you're delivering a particular service across London, say. Do you think they would be considering the user experience of their section of the website? Would they know enough about what it means, and how can you tell them what it means? What's the best way?
I think probably in most cases, no, people don't know enough about these. So I feel that where we've taken people on a journey with email marketing, social marketing, SEO, writing for the web, I think a lot of people are a lot further on with those skills than they were, say, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. I think that the conversations now around user experience, information architecture, agile working, analytics, that's where the digital team is coming into its own with training and teaching people about those skills.
And hopefully it's not going to be long before there's questions about, surely you just mess around on Facebook all day. Hopefully those questions will subside and people can ask questions about the best way to structure their site so that the user gets the best experience and they're likely to get kind of best outcomes from that. Okay, so what we're talking about is maybe there might be a little bit of a digital team in the future, but that digital team, while not completely out on its ear, is there to provide organizational strategy, expertise, advice, training, but not there to just do all of your content for you. I know a lot of organizations, when they're creating emails that go out from their charities, they'll get people to sort of fill in a Word document saying what do you want to say in the email, what do you want the subject line to be, all of that sort of thing, and then they'll put the email together for them using their kind of best practice and stuff like that. In the future, that department will be putting together their own emails, but the digital team will have that sort of central oversight sort of role. Do you see that as the way things need to be in the next 10 years?
Yeah, absolutely. And probably a stage beyond that as well. So I think to an extent, a lot of digital teams have been, and probably still are, almost a teacher. So as well as kind of setting up and getting email, getting social going, we've also had to educate the organisation about them. And I don't think that's always left much time to innovate and to take them to the next level. But you've got the kind of platforms now, Hootsuite, Sprout Social on social. You've got platforms for email marketing. You've got content management systems that do allow you to devolve content production, content creation to an organization. Now, obviously, for that to be successful, the organization has to have a basic level of understanding, a foundation level of understanding. So you change the digital team from being one of a teacher to being one where you can move almost to a moderator. So you've set the foundations, you've brought the platforms in, you've set the standards, you've done the training, you've set an organization up to be culturally aware of digital, and then you can step back and take a moderator role. And with the foundations and the guidelines, make sure that people are doing things properly, but don't do everything for everybody. Now, alongside this, for me, goes the move into the marketing team, so that as well as having the foundations in place and letting people get on with their own thing, you are also part of a marketing team that can concentrate on the big marketing campaigns rather than being tied up in the day-to-day churn of the digital content.
Okay, so let's talk a bit about the kind of cultural side of that then, because you talk about having a moderation function, but I imagine there's a few people watching this webinar and having a think and going, well, I work in an organization of 100 people, 150 people. How do, forgetting about all the skills, forgetting about all the training, we can put together a training course on any aspect of digital that you like. Culturally speaking, how do we get them on side? Forget the skills bit. How do we, as people, try to get them round to our way of thinking that this kind of hub and spoke model, this outsourced, if you like, digital skills around the organization is the way to go?
It's difficult. I think it's not easy. But for me, it's about taking the principles of user experience, so taking your own faith and belief and understanding in user experience and applying it to the change that you're trying to bring about in the organization. So you have to understand people, you have to understand what's blocking them from engaging with digital, and then you have to talk in the language that those people are going to understand. And be a bit creative as well. So we've experimented, we like doing stuff with A/B testing. So doing a few quizzes, so putting out 2 different versions of a web page, asking people to guess which one did better than the other, engaging them in then conversations about the possibility of digital, what can be achieved with it. There's not one answer for all situations. You have to understand your organization, you have to understand the people in it, you have to have a vision yourself of where you want the organization to go. And then you just have to go around being really passionate about it, talking to the right people in the way that they're going to want to hear it.
Yeah, that kind of being passionate is, it's got to be really important so that they can see that you're emotionally attached to this way of working and, this kind of vision that you've created, so that maybe that they should be as well. I really like the idea of putting out those sort of A/B tests there's a couple of great resources for anyone to sign up to, really. And one of them is called This versus That, which is a great sort of charity A/B test where you decide, or you try and decide which version of an email or a web page led to the most conversions, so donations or email signups. Really good way of getting people engaged. I've been working in digital for years, and I probably get them right maybe 50% of the time, less than 50% of the time. So no better than random guessing. So it always goes to show you that it's a really fun way of getting people on side. We've got one question online here from David, who says, won't there always be an editorial formatting role for a digital team, customizing content, fit channel? So if you've got sort of the foundation bit of content, say promoting a service for drug abusers in a particular part of London, say, won't there always be that kind of formatting role for the digital team to try and get that foundation content, the impact that service has, try to get it to fit the digital channels that you think are most appropriate?
I'm going to be perhaps a little controversial here and say no, not necessarily. I don't think it's difficult to understand what makes good web writing. I think you can do the training, you can help people to create their own content and give them the platform to publish it. I think where I see the digital team coming into its own in future is the moderator role. So it'd be the analysing whether that content has worked and then reporting back and working with the team that created it to optimize it. So the creators being the optimizers.
Right, so it's not just about kind of policing the content that goes out on the various channels, but it's about taking the data that comes in on its performance, and there's always a huge amount of data available through Google Analytics or MailChimp or whatever email platform you happen to use, and then going and working with them to try and optimize it to make it better next time.
Yes, absolutely. So it's about understanding what that content's trying to achieve. So making sure that there's a goal set for it, perhaps making sure that there's a purpose for it. So this is where the guidelines come in. So you have your content guidelines that establish what should and shouldn't be published in the first place, and how and where it should be published.
Okay.
And the digital role becomes one of analysis and improvement.
Excellent. Okay, so we're just in the last few minutes then, why don't you tell us a bit about, because it sounds great in theory, of course, all of this stuff, obviously it's not as easy as all of that. Can you tell us just a bit more about your experience at RNIB trying to implement some of these changes, maybe in the short term, or some of the kind of foundation stuff? Because you work in a digital team yourself, and a 12-strong digital team, as you mentioned. So tell us a bit about your experience in implementing some of these things in a small scale, maybe top tips for people listening.
So I think my experience has been that the digital journey so far has been, I was going to say slow, it's been relatively slow. I mean, you look back at 4 years ago, 5 years ago, the team was much smaller. A lot of the conversations were about growing the team. A lot of my thinking was about growing the team and about bringing the right skills into the right areas of expertise. And that, of course, was in the context of digital transformation, which really is something we've only been talking about for the last couple of years, maybe. Mm-hmm. I think starting now to think about post-transformation, almost. I think there's been sort of a rush to get to a point where you have a digital team that's ready for the present. But I'm starting to think about what happens once transformation has happened, and formulating that vision for where does the team go beyond that. So there's been an awful lot of work on education. I've mentioned that a few times, but I feel like a big part of what I've been doing over the past few years has been educating the organisation about digital. Once there is a level of understanding about that, things actually move quite quickly. And I think I've found that being then one step ahead of the game is what matters next. You've got where you want to be in terms of size and scale of the team. You have to then reformulate your conversation and your thinking to take the organisation beyond that point and understand where to go next.
And no matter what stage of that kind of transformation journey, and transformation does mean different things to different people, no matter what stage you're at, that kind of education program whereby you talk to the rest of the organization about what digital is, what it can achieve, how different channels work best, that's always going to be time well spent.
Yes, it is. It's never, ever a bad thing to go and sit with another team and tell them about what you do. It's easy to assume that people know what your team do. It's easy to assume that they'll come to you if they need to. Everyone's really busy. You can get so caught up in the day-to-day of what you're doing that you don't have the time to go and talk to the right people. And I would say it's much better to spend a day ditching the email and going and sitting down with fundraising and asking them what's going on, going and sitting with another team and spending time with them than answering your emails.
Yeah, I can agree with that more, really. It's very easy to email colleagues, and yeah, it can definitely do some harm to relationships compared to going and sitting down in person. All right, so final question then from Beth. Should you open up social media, for example, to local services across the organisation, or keep that as a central function and a funnel that filters all the F's there? So we've got social media services. Should that be sort of dispersed across the organisation, or do you think that's something that should be sort of centralised within the digital team that kind of filter content from there?
So I think to answer that question, you first have to understand what your customers actually want for you on social media. So we did recently go and ask a lot of our customers whether they wanted to hear from RNIB through one channel that told them about all that we did, or whether they wanted more local channels. And actually most people said that they just wanted things to come through a central channel, and they wanted local information for certain things. So having established what your customers want, you then go and work out the model internally that will allow you to meet that need. And where customers do want a variety of different channels, they do want to hear from you about specifics, perhaps local information or service information, I genuinely believe then that you devolve that to the team in question. But as the digital team, you set the right foundations and the moderation for them.
Yeah, totally agree with that, totally agree. Okay, that's more or less all of the time we've got for today's webinar. So you can find a bit more about ideas on digital change across lots of different channels on our blog, that's platypusdigital.com/blog. If you want to check out RNIB's excellent work, it's rnib.org.uk. And yeah, so that's pretty much it. Just want to say thanks to Verity. And any sort of closing words, Verity, from today?
It's been really interesting thinking about this, thinking back over the past few years, what's done, what's been achieved. There's a huge amount more to be achieved at RNIB, and it seems like a good point to mention that I'm moving on from RNIB. So there is a really exciting role at RNIB as the Senior Manager for Digital at the moment. This is the 25th of November that I'm saying this, if you're watching it a little down the line. There is a job going to be going live for Senior Manager Digital at RNIB. If you think you're interested, you're more than welcome to drop me a line.
And if you think you can build on Verity's excellent work so far, using everything you've learnt in this webinar, then that's possibly the best place you could possibly do it. Thanks a lot for tuning in, everyone, and we'll see you next time. Bye.